Hello everyone, welcome to my channel where we share with you the most engaging stories with the most satisfying endings. Join us today as we bring you this story of a woman who thinks she's a queen. The protagonist of our story is a 47-year-old woman named Karen from New Jersey. She had lived in her house for nearly 2 decades and never had any issues with her neighbors until her next-door neighbor moved out. The new neighbor was a 26-year-old man whom Karen thought was a slacker or even a loser. Even though she didn't know him well, she decided to make judgments about his life choices. Karen considered herself a pillar of the community and the HOA president for over 10 years. She believed that her power and authority within the neighborhood gave her the status of a queen. The other neighbors were her loyal subjects, and they respected her. However, she thought that they respected her because they feared her wrath if they didn't. She had been eyeing her neighbor's property since he moved in, and she started to notice some things that irked her. One day, she saw him outside and asked him why he had a basketball hoop on his property. He explained that he liked playing basketball and had permission from the previous owner to leave it there. Karen insisted that the basketball hoop had to go, even though it wasn't a violation of any HOA rules. The neighbor tried to ignore her, but Karen kept coming back every few days to check up on him. Eventually, she went too far when she started bringing her own basketball and trying to use the hoop without asking. When the neighbor came out to confront her, Karen told him that since he wasn't using the hoop, she was going to take over. She continued to use the hoop whenever she wanted, ignoring the neighbor's protests and attempts to talk to her. Meanwhile, the neighbor's girlfriend, Olivia, had been watching the whole thing unfold. She couldn't believe how rude Karen was being and vowed to teach her a lesson. Olivia and her boyfriend decided that the best way to get back at Karen was to simply ignore her. They hoped that she would get bored and eventually stop bothering them. But Karen was not the type of person to give up easily. She continued to harass the couple, which only made them closer and stronger as a couple. In the end, it was the neighbor who had the last laugh. He used his connections and got a new basketball court built for himself nearby, and although it wasn't as fancy as Karen's, it was still a victory for him. This is a classic case of don't mess with your neighbor. If you do, they just might teach you a lesson you won't forget. We all have the right to enjoy our own properties without harassment or interference from others. Karen thought she could use her power as HOA president to bully her neighbor, but karma had a way of balancing things out. The neighbor and his girlfriend's simple act of building a new basketball court was a great way to stand up to Karen and show her that she couldn't control everything. It also taught Karen a valuable lesson about respecting other people's boundaries and not taking advantage of her position of power. Our protagonist, let's call him John, has been living in his house for a few years now, and he's always been careful to follow the rules of his HOA. But recently, his HOA president, Karen, has been targeting him for no reason. At first, it was minor things like making comments about his basketball hoop. But then she started coming over unannounced and even trying to use his property without asking. Olivia, John's girlfriend, is fed up with Karen's behavior. She knows that Karen is just trying to intimidate them and she won't stand for it. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. She starts by researching Karen and finds out that she's a single woman with no kids. This gives Olivia an idea. She sends Karen a series of emails, pretending to be her daughter, talking about how she wants to move in with her boyfriend and get an abortion. Karen responds to the emails, giving advice and making comments about Olivia's personal life. Olivia continues to play along, pretending to be a teenager and getting Karen to open up. She learns that Karen is lonely and just wants someone to talk to. So Olivia decides to take advantage of that. Olivia starts emailing Karen more frequently, telling her about how she and John are planning to buy Karen's house and tear it down. She says that she doesn't care what Karen thinks and that she'll do it even if Karen tries to stop her. This goes on for a few months, and Karen becomes increasingly agitated. She starts leaving angry voicemails for Olivia, calling her a bitch and threatening to call the cops. Finally, Olivia drops a bombshell. She tells Karen that she and John have already bought the house next door and are planning to move in soon. Karen is furious and confronts them, but John and Olivia just laugh. They know that they've got Karen where they want her, and they're having fun with it. One day, John receives a letter from the HOA stating that he's in violation of several rules, including having an unsightly basketball hoop on his property. He knows that Karen is behind it, and he's not going to take it lying down, so he decides to fight back. He starts by looking up the rules and regulations of the HOA and finds that Karen has violated them several times herself. He also talks to his neighbors and finds out that they are also fed up with Karen's behavior. With the support of his neighbors, John calls a meeting and unseats Karen as HOA president. In the end, John and Olivia are able to move in next door, and Karen is left empty-handed. As John and Olivia move into their new house, they can't help but laugh at the thought of Karen's reaction. They know that they've got her where they want her, and they're having fun with it. John decides to start by researching Karen and finds out that she's a single woman with no kids. This gives Olivia an idea. She starts emailing Karen pretending to be her daughter, talking about how she wants to move in with her boyfriend and get an abortion. It was the perfect comeback for John and Olivia. They had turned the tables on Karen, and she didn't know what hit her. Karen had always thought of herself as the queen of her little HOA kingdom, but she had met her match in Olivia. John and Olivia were able to move into their new home and start their lives together without Karen's interference. As for Karen, she was left to deal with the consequences of her own actions. She had created her own enemies, and now she had to face the music. The once powerful HOA president was brought down by her own arrogance, and nobody shed a single tear for her. If you're thinking about joining an HOA, be careful. You might end up dealing with a Karen like the one in this story. Don't mess with people who are trying to live their lives. You never know when karma might come back to bite you. And remember, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. You might be surprised at what you find. So what do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.